we'll start off here with choosing to advertise on brand, meaning your own keyword, or not advertising on brand. Before we get into the discussion, why don't you just lead with, like, for those who aren't acquainted, what is brand advertising on Google Ads? Is it search? Is it remarketing? What is brand advertising?
So when we say brand, what we're referring to is basically anyone who is searching for your company name, your product name, a nickname associated with it, any particular aspect that is unique to you. So essentially, they are someone who has already purchased, somebody who's already heard of your product, someone who the trust factor is already there. At least, they have an awareness of your product. They're effectively someone who's returning. It might be the first time that they're coming to your site, so they may not technically be returning, but in some way you've already impacted them and they're searching for it. That's essentially brand, and it is a very different value than what we'll refer to on the other side of things is non-brand, no brand involved in the marketing. So no brand means everything except anything to do with your product, business name, website, URL. If they don't type those things and they type something adjacent to that, if you're a roofing company, they don't type Good Roofers because that's the name of your company. Instead, they type, best roofers near me. Obviously, they're looking for a roofer and they're not citing your business name. So that is that's the whole conversation. We're going to start with brand or no brand. I think, Jason, there is a very good reason why this is the number one thing. Yeah. And it is probably the most common mistake that I see in accounts where they don't understand the difference between allowing brand to flow into a campaign and then looking at that ROAS, looking at that return on ad spend, looking at that cost per conversion and thinking, hey, look, I'm super profitable. And what they don't know is that they're blending these two methods of traffic together. So I think it's a great thing to bring up first.
Okay, so before you get into do you do it, do you not do it, let's start off with assuming you're going to do it, how do you do it? So you kind of previewed this earlier. You can show up on your own brand searches from sometimes phrase match, but most often broad match keywords. If you're a storage company in Fort Worth, Texas,
Fort Worth,
and okay. Yeah, Fort Worth. If you're a storage company in Fort Worth and you have keywords like storage, Fort Worth, storage, self-storage near me, maybe your brand has the word storage in it, so you could potentially show up with phrase match, or it's very close to those searches. Or let's say you're running broad match, and behind the scenes on your search terms, you're getting a lot of brand searches that are flowing in through non-brand broad match keywords. Chris, it sounds like that bothers you? And if you're going to do brand, you say put it in its own ad group with its own keywords?
Yep.
Okay, why does it bother you so much if the traffic still performs good?
Here's why. I have a client right now that I don't think they're going to fire me, but they are very confused why they formerly had a campaign that was spending thousands and thousands of dollars, getting tons and tons of traffic, and had phenomenal returns. Then Chris comes in, determines that there's just a good layering of brand speckled in with their non-brand. So I do the right thing, pull that brand out. Guess what happens? Suddenly they get a fraction of the traffic volume that they're able to maintain within that profitable level. The ROAS has to be about a 3, I think like a 3.2, something like that, for them to be profitable. I'm getting a fraction of the spend and a fraction of the conversions, because once I pulled that brand out, they realized, oh wow, that's once we pull out that inflationary brand traffic that floats the entire system above what it should actually be at, we realized actually we were spending thousands and thousands that was not profitable, because when I gut that out, they were at like a 1.4 on ROAS. They were actually losing money when I pull out that brand. That's why.
What match type of the keywords was the brand sneaking through, if you will? Was it broad match keywords?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Broad
So an advertiser that doesn't know much about like search terms, or maybe the way broad match keywords work, they were looking at their keywords were on topic, and they were performing really good, hitting the ROAS goals, but behind the scenes, the search terms that were producing that good performance were brand search terms to a very large extent.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
So you didn't mess them up. You kind of showed them reality.
Right. And they're still really confused and probably thinking it's better to live in ignorance than it is to live with the truth about what's actually happening, because now it's kind of like, well, okay, now we're not spending the money. Now we're starting to see a drop in sales, because what was happening is they were advertising at a loss, and that was bringing up the total volume while operating at a loss. So they're looking at their books showing a drop in conversions, but in reality, if we consider how much they're spending now, the profitability of their spend, they're actually more efficient, but they're getting less volume. So it is an extreme situation to be in, simply because when you're artificially floating your campaign through with brand, it can make a crappy campaign look like a phenomenal campaign.
Yeah, and that's I think why we're in agreement that whether you want to run on brand or not is a separate conversation. But if you are going to run on brand, do it in a separate ad group, possibly a separate campaign. So it's not a question, at least at this part of the conversation, of whether you want to do brand or not. It's if you're going to do it, put it in its own ad group, maybe its own campaign with its own budget. But the benefit of doing that is because if brand is performing really well, which it sounds like it is for your client, you can continue to perform really well with brand. You can perform the exact same that you're performing with brand from broad match keywords as you can with brand keywords, because they'll come in, the same search terms will come in, bid them accordingly, and you'll get the same exact performance. But by taking it out of the other kinds of broad match keywords, you're now seeing the true performance of those broad match keywords. And it probably always is, if that performance of the straightforward broad match keywords is different than your brand performance, now you can bid that more accurately to your goals. So it's some short-term pain to kind of see some poor results from those straightforward keywords when you have brand as a negative in that ad group, but you can actually fix the situation and get good results truly from both brand, like you were, but also the straightforward broad match keywords. Is that the conversation you're having with your client, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's actually one of the most difficult situations to be in, where you come in as a professional and say, okay, I'm going to fix this. And then you reveal to them how profitable their non-brand campaign really is. And they think, well, it was better before you came, living in ignorance. It's a really tough sell. But honestly, if you want to be a good business owner and be a good steward of the money that you're spending on Google, I mean, that is exactly what you should be doing. So to the question of whether you should be running brand or no brand, here's the line I draw on that.
Okay.
And let me know if you agree. If you have other people bidding against your name, bidding against you, even one other competitor that shows up on your name, then I think you should do a brand campaign. I think it's worth it. If you happen to have a business that has the company name in your name, or excuse me, the service in your name. So let's say you do, your name is The Good Roofing Company, right? And that's the name of your company. You're going to get competitors showing up on your name because roofing company is in your name.
Sure.
So absolutely, that company should advertise on their own brand name. I see no problem with that. And I see no problem when other people are advertising directly. If your company name is Whoop-de-Woo and people are advertising on Whoop-de-Woo, and you know that this is not a mistake, they're particularly advertising on your company name, there's no way to cross that path unless they meant to, then absolutely bid against those people and maintain your presence on that name.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the main way to think about it is if you like showing up number one organically and being the first option that people see when they search your brand name with yourself there organically and getting 100% of the brand traffic you're supposed to get, and no one's above your organic ever, then yeah, you could advertise, but it'll probably be the same, close to the same flow of traffic. But if there are people that show up for whatever reason between the search and your organic listing with an ad there, you're going to, by definition, get less traffic than you should from your brand. And so you can run brand ads and show up there. Now, they're very cheap because the quality scores are very high most often, or usually on brand, because Google recognizes, oh, this is the perfect relevance for this keyword because they're looking for this exact business. So you get very high quality scores. So therefore, your cost per clicks can be really low. So it can be cheap.
Yeah.
That said, there's some other reasons to do it, even if you don't see a lot of ads on your name. Number one, Chris, and let me know if you think these are valid. I wrote down brand grows the brand. So there's one thing to have an organic listing there, just like everybody else. There's another thing to have a huge Google Ads ad with all the extent or many of the extensions showing, your site links showing with the descriptions and taking up all that real estate and looking very, very prominent. You can also get some different messaging across there. If you're doing a search for something and maybe you heard about it by word of mouth, you do a search, you see that huge brand ad there with the expanded site links. Why are they expanded? Why do you get to see the description? Because the quality score in the ad rank is so high. And it's kind of like you get rewarded for that. Doesn't that do something to you, Chris, even as a Google Ads or a Google search power user, if you will, like you know what's going on? Doesn't it do something to you to see like a really big listing there?
Sure. I mean, it commands, it does command, a trust, this is who I'm looking for. And for a PPC professional, we understand what they're doing, but for a layman who doesn't know what that is, it's going to lead them straight to the right place, and they're not going to get distracted on some old link or broken link or, some competitor or something. So yeah, I can see it.
And another one, this is hard, probably impossible to prove. I don't know if a lot of people agree with this. I don't even know if I agree with it, but I think there is something to having a brand campaign, getting a 15, 20, 30, 35% click-through rate, maybe higher, getting a bunch of high quality score keywords, getting a lot of conversions. You can feed the automated bidding a lot more conversion data that can apply to the other campaigns. You can get possibly, we don't know, but possibly some kind of ad rank help on your overall account. These are just theories. Do you think there's anything to that, Chris?
I'm going to leave that one in the dirt. I'm not going to touch it. I have no idea.
I'll pick it up. Well, we have no idea, but it's one of those things where, like, if you have the budget to do it, why not do it? Because we know it can't hurt, and it could possibly be helping quite a bit. One more for you. This is the toughest decision when it comes to brand. You don't have extra budget. You have $1,000 a month budget. You're missing out on over 80% just due to budget, search impression share. You're trying to make the most of that $1,000 budget for someone that's new to Google Ads. You could spend it all on search. You could get nice, new, haven't heard about the business yet conversions from search. What do you do in that situation? Do you let brand in there to kind of do all the good things we just talked about? Or do you make the most of that very limited budget and spend it all on the search for the new leads? How do you feel about that?
I don't feel that
specific situation by situation.
I don't feel that PPC has a place apart from generating new sales. I don't think that
that's the highest and best use, you're saying?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, if you have $1 to spend, that dollar should go towards getting someone new to buy from you. I mean, I feel like if the client really understood everything that I understand and they knew what their dollar was going to, I think that they would prefer that last dollar to go to trying to get that last sale. You know, I think it just makes more sense. Very rarely is a returning customer going to be worth more than a new customer. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. For a situation where you have a very, very limited budget, um, you know, I can see it both ways. I would, it's definitely something, you know, talk to the advertiser, see how they see how
Sure.
important brand is to them. At the end of the day, though, do a good job at your service, and you're going to get more word of mouth, and you're going to get more people looking up your brand online, and you'll get that organic traffic. These leads that Chris and I can get you from people who are searching the perfect search term for the exact service you offer, who would have never ever come across your business if you weren't working with Google Ads or me or Chris, and we weren't running your ads as well as we can. We're never going to get that traffic unless we actually get it with Google Ads search. So I definitely see how we should put a higher value on that new traffic that would have never existed without the Google Ads search campaign versus some more word of mouth brand traffic and referral traffic that they can get all sorts of ways just doing a good job at work every day.